Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth Walker, your producer and host, bringing you exclusive spotlights, interviews, articles, free resources. This is Dear Business Coach, the podcast. Listen, follow, and the email subscription is at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Also, access the free magazine each week. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. Okay. Yeah. So, Jim, thank you so much for coming today and joining me on the show. Welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and it's a Friday. It's the end of the week. The weekend's
right.
here. I'm not sure what day this will come out, but we're recording on a Friday morning. But I'm excited to be here, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I think one of the things that struck me about you is how we have sort of a love of the details a little bit, and and I want to make sure that I remember to stay on track. So I have, of course, my original ideas about what I wanted to ask or what I thought you might be sharing. So I'm curious. I'm excited to see what you brought today to the conversation, I guess. But before I get all into that, what is your official introduction? What do you call yourself?
That's interesting because now that I've published a book, I have to include author in that. But
Yes.
I'm one of several things. I'm an author. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a keynote speaker, but I'm also the chief sales officer for a healthcare digital engagement company. And I've been serving in that capacity for the last several years. And we touch 1 out of every 3 Americans in some way, shape, or form with the services that we provide. And we help people become healthier, stay on track with their clinical programs that they should be on, making sure they take their medications, and a whole lot more.
Wow. So we are partnered. The Dear Business Coach podcast is now officially partnered with NordVPN. And you know what? Look out for the logo, some press releases, cool information. What in the heck is a VPN and how does it work? I'm really excited. I travel and now I know how to get the VPN security I need. So Nord is now officially our affiliate partner. Look out for ways to support the show by going to the affiliate link I provide to you in your email and other places. You can see it on the website. Thanks so much, NordVPN. Well, you have a track record, I guess, and I'm assuming this just based on conversations I've had with you, um, about your introspection, right? This is a field where you have the capacity to either be very technical and very procedural, even from a leadership standpoint, or you have the vision where you're working with people, and that's not where you're concerning relationships. And what I mean by that, for example, is I worked in a pharmacy for a couple of months training for a position, and I realized in that short period of time how important it is in the training in this kind of industry to remember that as procedural as it is to get things correct, we have to remember why we're interacting with people, and that goal of the human relationship determines what is the priority of your business. So that takes a lot of particular concentration, and it's kind of an artful way to interact with your business, right? Because that means you have to be conscious of that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one aspect of business which is watching the numbers, and I always tell people the numbers never lie, and sort of manage sales organizations around that whole measurement process. But it's really the human aspect of leadership that I think people struggle with most. And from mentoring people for the last 25 plus years, I started to see a trend in what we do in corporate America. And what we do is we find someone like yourself who has done a really, really great job at doing something And then we say, Elizabeth, we want to make you a manager. And now you're going to lead this team of 15 or 20 people or 10 people, but we don't give you a roadmap of how to do that. And so what I started to do 2 years ago was started to think, after retirement, what do I want to do? And as I leave the corporate world, or when I leave the corporate world, I want to do coaching full time and more speaking about leadership, and kind of bringing these characteristics to people to help them and to help them develop further. And it's really the soft skills that we don't pass down to new leaders. We try to
Mm.
focus on the bottom line, we focus on the profit margin, we focus on the recurring revenue, but we don't always look at the human side of leadership. And I think that's where this becomes important.
Okay. Well, now what do you mean by that in the human side? Because even though feel like I feel like I agree with you, I'm now asking myself if I uh really get that, because the word leadership in to me implies, right, a human leading a human, or humans leading humans, or um there, why we need leadership, right? In fact, we are people in a society, and it's helpful to use leadership in different ways. And yet, when does leadership become not human? Right.
I It's always been human, but I think there's some characteristics that some people don't like to have. I'll give you a
Mhm.
couple of examples. I knew a CEO who every day would come into work and would park on the side of the building, enter a side door, and take the freight elevator upstairs to his office.
Wow.
And that really bothered me. When I get out of the car, I'm interacting with people, whether I work directly with them or not. And that's a big difference in leadership, in being with the people. In addition to that, a lot of leaders struggle with things like compassion and empathy. And to me, it's very important to notice when your employee is having an off day where they're not their norm, so that you can interject and see if there's something you can do to help. Could be that their pet is sick, their child is sick, their wife is sick, a relative is sick. Could be almost anything. But we as leaders have to be aware of what's going around, and when our employees are feeling off, so we can help them. Because if they're dealing with something that's bigger than they can handle, we need to get them the help that they need. I mean, when we look at our country today, we're in a mental health crisis. And, we all have hundreds of different pieces of information coming at us every minute or every second. And it's tough for some people to deal with these things. And as leaders,
Mhm.
we have an obligation to protect our employees. And they're the lifeblood of every American company. And so a leader who can't show compassion or empathy or be aware of what an employee is going through, I think is failing at the biggest part of their job.
Mm. Right. Well, now what happens, if I feel like, I guess my question is, can I be trained? Is this something that I can learn?
Absolutely. So my motto is, you've heard the old adage, people are born leaders.
Hmm.
Well, I'm a perfect case of that not being true.
Okay.
If I was born a leader, I would probably have had a genetic disposition from other people ahead of me in the family lineage.
Mm.
My dad was a carpenter. His dad was a mason. His dad was a chicken farmer. CEO boardroom is not in any one of those. So my thing is, leaders are built and developed. They're not born that way. And it takes a long time to develop those skills and those traits. You can't really just learn it out of a book. You have
Mm.
to understand how to apply it and how to be aware of those things. But leadership is absolutely an evolutionary thing that evolves over time. And as you get more experience in leadership, and as the universe expands and changes, you have to adapt and go with that. I'll give you an example. When I graduated college in 1983 and entered the work world as a manager, um, I managed very differently than I do today. Back in 1983 was a carryover from the 70s where leadership was more authoritarian, where someone would say to you, okay, Elizabeth, these are the three things you need to do today, and I'd like to see them by 4 o'clock. Or these are the things I need you to have to do. Today, leadership is not like that. It's much more collaborative in terms of not telling you what to do, but in essence, telling you what the goal is and having you work collaboratively with others to create the plan to achieve those goals, not somebody dictating the steps that you need to go through and be methodical at doing that. So, as I've learned and developed and evolved as a leader, I've learned that these soft skills become critical in developing teams that are committed, loyal, and that'll follow you into the heat of battle and will be very supportive. But a leader who doesn't operate that way typically has trouble sustaining people for a long period of time. They get disinterested. They don't think that they're part of the team, and they don't evolve and they don't learn. And those leaders tend to have much higher turnover rates as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, my voluntary attrition rate is very low single digits, very low single digits compared to a national average.
Hey, listeners, don't forget to subscribe to email if you haven't already. Do this at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. And if you are a new subscriber, look for the magazine coming up. You can get a free download as a new subscriber. That's dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Thanks so much, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember, you are a superstar. Right. Now, I wonder, I like that you were careful there to include the words evolving and learning. So I find that an important addition and distinction. If I say my goal is to have my team and my employees feel invested, and I believe that that will create a better relationship and a better company and a better product ultimately, then and the goal is to sustain us as people in the work that we do each day, then as human nature, I personally, you're absolutely right, I need to feel like I'm learning and evolving for that to be a reality for me.
Correct. And the difference between a manager and a leader is a manager may be a taskmaster at a lower level. As a leader, I feel my number one responsibility is to help you learn and develop as a professional and really raise the next generation of leaders. That's really what I view as a big part of my job. It's not just hitting the numbers. It's how do I ensure that after I leave, there's somebody there that can step in and do what I do and lead for a set number of years beyond when I retire, as an example. And so I believe very much in that. I also believe strongly in mentorship. And really this all started 25 years ago when I started mentoring people and really learning what people were struggling with in terms of in the role of being a manager, and trying to understand their struggles and trying to help them through that.
Yeah, you told me also that you're right. We often take, or what you have seen, and I have observed as well, is having somebody put into a role or asked to step into a role based on performance of an individual measure.
Correct.
And so then what? Does that work? Can it work? Is that all altogether wrong?
No, not at all. It's absolutely, but that's the way the world has always operated. The thing that I've done is created a roadmap of the things that they need to learn, so that they can be a more successful leader, so that they can be the leader that everybody wants to follow or be like, the one that the team is not only having the greatest success, but having the most fun at the same time. The people who are truly acting as a team, and you can see the camaraderie as well as the competition, and you can see the success and the failures. And when there's a failure, being able to learn from that failure so you don't repeat that failure again. And so, because it's okay to fail. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing I openly admit is, as a leader, I don't have all the answers. I know where the smart people are, though, to help us get the answers. And I think that's what a leader, I think that's what a leader is. A leader doesn't have to have the answers, but they have to be able to work with people and teams to be able to get to the answer, get the emotion out of it, and figure out what do we need to know in order to make the right decision.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you are you good at having the communication level set up in one way that, yes, we can check in with each other on a personal note, and set those boundaries, so that when we are taking the emotion out of it, we are focusing on the task when we need to? How do I do that?
So I do a couple of things with my direct reports. I have a team meeting of my direct reports once a week for an hour, where we talk about global things that impact everybody. And I also have a one-on-one meeting every week with each direct report. That one-on-one meeting is not my meeting, it's their meeting.
Mm.
It's for them to bring to me the things that they're struggling with, that they're challenging with, that they don't know how to resolve, or they need some other input or insight into. And so they come when we meet, when we have that individual meeting, they come with a list of the things
Mm.
that they want to go over. Now, and my general rule is I'm very accessible. If something is urgent, there's no reason to wait for your next one-on-one meeting. Put time on my calendar. I do tell people, look, we're not performing open heart surgery, so nothing is so critical that the alarms have to go off or whatever. But if you need to talk to me, reach out to me, or just put time on my calendar. I'm the type of leader that you don't need my permission to put time on my calendar. If you need me, or if anybody in the organization needs me, just put time on my calendar, and,
Mm.
and I'll be there for you. I don't use a screener. I don't use, and this is for internal staff, not external salespeople trying to sell you something, but internal staff people know that A, I'm very approachable, and B, they have the access to my calendar to just book time.
Mm. Mhm. Now, do you think is now a good time actually for you to tell me what would I be picking up your book for? What would I expect where am I starting when I pick up your book? Am I getting an introspection into you? Is it a starting point where I can start to think about myself when reading?
So it's really for you to think about yourself. So what I've done is come up with 6 critical attributes that I think every leader needs to have. I started with a list of 15 to 18 and said, that's too many for people to try to implement. I need to
Mm.
think of it as smaller. And so I finally I was able to carve it down to 6. Couldn't get it to 5. And I thought 7 was too many. And so there's 6. And it all starts with a characteristic that I say is non-negotiable. And it's like the center pillar of the building that's holding up the peak of the roof, and it's integrity. To me, a leader has to be transparent and operate with absolute integrity. Without that, everything else falls apart. You can't build a trusting team if they don't feel that you're being truthful with them and being honest with them. They will not be loyal. They will not be committed to the vision that you're putting forth. And when you try to help them by showing empathy or compassion, they'll think of it as an empty promise and not take it seriously. So integrity has got to be the leading pillar for everybody to be successful. If not, again, You're going to see higher turnover, lower satisfaction within your employees, and a whole lot more.
Now, I think about integrity in so many different ways. It's demonstrated all day long, and or not. So, what when I think about my own integrity and my how I appear to other folks that I'm working with, I might have some assumptions. I might think to myself, "Oh, I have integrity. I know that I have integrity. I know what that means to me." But I'm not sure where does that translate and demonstrate inside of an organization, for example? That might be a really tough question.
It's not a tough question. Let me tell you how I got introduced to that pillar and the whole concept of integrity. In 1983, when I graduated college, I also ran for a city council position in the town I grew up in, and I won.
Nice.
And, at the age of 22.
Wow.
About 2 weeks after, or maybe a week after the election, the city administrator asked if I could stop in and have a chat with him. And I sat down with him and we were having a nice chat. And he said, I want to ask you a favor. I said, okay.
Hmm.
He said, you're a smart guy. You're going to be very, very successful in whatever you do. You did a great job campaigning. You had competition. He said, but what I want you to do is every night when you lay down in bed, before you close your eyes to go to sleep, I want you to ask yourself one question. And that question is, did I do anything today for my own personal self-benefit that was at the expense of another individual, group of individuals, or organization? And he said, if you can say no to that question, you can sleep peacefully. If you say yes to that question, you need to immediately do two things before you go to sleep. Number one, figure out if you can unwind what you did. And number two, figure out how do you never do it again.
Wow.
And I have asked myself that question every night since 1983.
Wow. I think that's fantastic. I can't I'm impressed that he shared that with you, and I imagine that he was impressed with you to share that. He said so. He said so. But to share that with you sounds like also a very personal journey for that person. So it sounds very genuine that he meant that and went through some of his own journey with that. And you obviously, the way you're sharing that with me now, I'm making that up, but that's what it feels like.
No, it has been the guiding light of my life and everything I do 24/7. 24, I don't sugarcoat things. I'm honest with people. I'm transparent with people. They will know what I know, especially like employees. They will know what I know. The only exception to that is if it's something highly confidential. I'll give you an example. Let's say
Mhm.
we're buying a company and we're in negotiations to buy that company. That's not something that we can really tell all the employees about because there's implications on the stock market, there's implications in just general business. It's a distraction. And so there are times where there's information that you may not be able to share, but that doesn't mean you don't have transparency or integrity. It just means it's
Right,
just not something you can share today.
right, right. That takes a little bit of practice.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, well now Jim, what about getting access to you and getting access to your book? So there's two things here. How can I connect with you? And when I do, can I pick up your book?
Absolutely. So in the show notes, you'll have access to my email, my website. My website's very simple. You see my name on the screen, Jim Carlough.
Mhm.
It's just www.jimcarlough.com. No space, no period, no underlines, just Jim Carlough, all squished together.com. On my website, you can find my phone number. My email address will be there as well as in the show notes. Reach out to me. One of the things and you can get the book on my website, you can get the book on Amazon. You can get the book on Barnes and Noble, and you can also get it on my website. But one of the things that I want to offer to your audience, and this will be in the show notes, is for the first 3 people who comment on this episode, good or bad,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because Elizabeth and I want feedback on whether anything resonated with you or didn't resonate with you and why. But the first 3 people who comment will get a free autographed copy of my book, The 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership, A Roadmap to Success.
Oh yeah, thank you.
And the book has hit kind of a bestseller status on
Oh.
Amazon for a few days, and that's all it takes. You can't be number one all the time. But there's millions of books out there, and you'll find the reviews for the book on Amazon and Goodreads as well to all say that there's 3 things that you get in the book. One, you get the 6 pillars, and with each pillar, you get a story about something that happened in my professional career or personal life that impacted that pillar, or to put it in words that makes it easy to understand what that pillar really means, and also suggestions on how to implement that pillar. And then the third thing that you get is I'm not an expert, and I'm learning just like everybody else is. So I give you names of people who you will recognize in the business world that you can also read about their leadership style because they use that pillar in their leadership style. So as an example, one of my pillars is compassion. And Satya Nadella, the CEO and chairman of Microsoft, he operates under a leadership kind of compassionate leadership program. And that's his number one pillar. Well, mine's integrity, but doesn't make his wrong. But you can read about his management style as well, and learn how he's applied that. So you get those 3 things in this book, and it will help you develop and gives you that roadmap to follow.
Yeah, I really like that. I always have said to myself and sometimes to others when I get the chance, share with people who you look up to, right? So when I get a chance to say, have you read Jim's book? You get to be one of those people that I say, have you heard of Jim Carlough? And that gives me an opportunity to share with other people, who do I look up to? Whose work am I reading? And the same goes for how I learn to follow you, for example, is thinking about, who are those folks that you have followed or looked at and taken time to consider, okay, this is a leader that I want to pay attention to, and gone so far as to include them as a reference point. So that's actually like an ingenious way for me, for example, to get to know who you are too. Jim, can I get to know you a little bit more personally by understanding that background, which is really genius.
Absolutely agree, because there's people that I follow, like Warren Buffett
Mhm.
or Ronald Reagan,
Mhm.
who served as president of the United States. And there's other people too, like Jeff Bezos, has done an amazing job with Amazon. Amazon started off as a book retailer only in the mid 90s. And
Yeah.
if you think about it
Nice.
today, we all can't survive without Amazon. It has dramatically changed business in America. And uh, some think in a bad way because it's eliminating storefronts and malls. But his concept was, I want people to be able to get stuff from the comfort of their own home and get it delivered quickly. And he has succeeded at that. He
Right.
absolutely succeeded at that. So those are people that I follow. Also, Simon Sinek I follow, who's also a leadership coach, and a number of others. So I have, if you can see behind me the wall of books,
Mhm.
I do a lot of reading. So
Right. Yeah, that's not a digital background.
that is not a digital background.
Well, I'm not sure. I think I may have kept you past time, but I want to say Thank you. And, this is very generous of you to give all your personal information and be willing to give away some free copies of your book and uh, be available like that. So, this is given me some food for thought too, to take more time with what those pillars are, and I appreciate the time. And as always, I learn from interviewing folks, but you have a way of breaking the details into important thought pieces, so I appreciate that.
That's one of the things I hear most often, that I'm pretty articulate and clear in a way that people can understand. And I think breaking things down to an understandable level is important. It's not about big words, right?
Mm.
It's really not about using big words. It's really about making sure people understand that they can translate or understand what you're saying or trying to convey.
Hmm. Well, and we'll hopefully talk again sometime soon, and look out for your magazine article. And thank you so much for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast today, Jim. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
I do. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I loved being here. This was a great opportunity to speak to you again, and I look forward to speaking to you in the future.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Bye for now. You've been listening to the Dear Business Coach podcast. My name's Elizabeth Walker, producer and host. Don't forget to subscribe to email. Thank you so much for being here, and find one thing today to move your business forward. Contact me at dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, you are a superstar.